Finally! Saturn has rings in Kitten Space Agency and they are beautiful. Hello everybody and welcome. This video is a bit of a weird one because I already recorded it, produced it and already uploaded it to YouTube on a schedule because I will be on vacation next week. And then suddenly the developers for Kitten Space Agency released an update to their game, which is currently in the pre-alpha stage, where they integrated rings for Saturn. And since Saturn is my favorite planet in the solar system, I of course had to put a little bit of an update in this video. But be aware there might be some older footage somewhere later in the video, and one of the focus points of this video is something completely different than Saturn, so I apologize for the inconsistency in videos. But yeah, let's get on with it. Last time I made a video about Kitten Space Agency, there was one of you who just said, Enceladus. Okay. This got me thinking, because Enceladus is very interesting. Not only is it a moon of Saturn, which is my favorite planet in the entire solar system thanks to its rings, but also Enceladus is potentially a candidate for life in our solar system that is not originating from Earth. So that gave me an idea to talk about all of the potential candidates for life in the solar system and also show you some of them in Kitten Space Agency. And as I said in the beginning, Saturn now has rings in Kitten Space Agency. Those were of course done in majority part by BlackRack, one of the graphics wizards currently on the team there at Rocketworks, who also did the fantastic volumetric cloud mod for Kerbal Space Program and also the Scatterer mod and some others. The rings already look great and they are already throwing shadows onto the surface of Saturn, and Saturn also throws shadows onto the rings, so it already looks fantastic. But the developers are not done, at least if we look at one of the dev update posts they did on their Discord server. If we look at that, we can see some upcoming things like actual ring elements, like these fine particles, these ice nuggets that the rings are actually made of should be potentially really visible to all of us. So that's going to be interesting to see when they integrate that. And if you want to stay in the loop of what's going on with Kitten Space Agency and all the updates that are coming in by the developers, make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you don't miss an update like this. So, and without any further ado, let's get cracking and go through all the planets in our solar system and talk about whether or not there is a chance for life there and what kind of scientific missions are already underway to find out if there is potentially some life there. Alright, first up, Mercury. Nope, no life there. It's devoid of anything. It's just a hot and cold rock, depending on which side of it you are. Temperatures on Mercury range from 430 degrees centigrade to minus 180 degrees centigrade. So yeah, and also there is a huge amount of solar radiation due to how close Mercury is to our sun. Not really conducive to life. Next up, Venus. And yeah, it's a hellhole. Massive storms, temperatures north of 500 degrees, immense atmospheric pressure. Yeah, this is not going to host any type of life as we know it or as we can even imagine it. There might have been liquid water on the surface of Venus a couple of million years ago, or a couple of million years after its formation rather. But since there was a runaway greenhouse effect and basically the atmosphere is now completely broken from our perspective, we don't expect to find any life on Venus, unfortunately. I mean, there is a theory that maybe in parts of the upper atmosphere there could be some sort of like microbial type life hanging around and floating around there, but so far we haven't found anything to confirm that assumption. And the next one I think I can skip right over. Earth, we are all familiar with it. We live here, we are life, so there is life on Earth. But when we look at our moon, of course, the moon as we call it, or Luna, there is nothing going on there. What is going on with the moon, at least in Kitten Space Agency, is that the developers are working on the terrain scatter there and improving how everything looks on the surface of the moon. Aside, of course, from its color, it's going to remain gray. Moving on to Mars. And this, of course, has been the source of much speculation in the past. It was the inspiration for countless science fiction stories, books, and movies about, well, not just little green men, but some variety of extraterrestrial life that originated there, or maybe still lives there, or maybe is coming from there to take over the Earth and enslave us all. So far, none of that has happened, and we don't expect it to happen if we're being realistic here. Mars is probably the most explored body in the solar system aside from the Earth and the Moon, with lots of satellites, probes, rovers, and the like littering its orbits and the surface. One of the more recent ones is the Perseverance rover, which of course is there to gather samples and look for potential signs of former life, because we don't expect to actually find current active life there since, well, the atmosphere is almost gone thanks to solar winds chipping away at it. And Perseverance is going to collect samples, and not just collect samples and analyze them, but also drop them at specified locations for a later Mars sample retrieval mission, which is still in the planning phase and might bring us some new insights into the composition of the surface and potential microbial corpses? How do you call bacteria that died? It all depends on how that sample retrieval mission is going to fare and what we can get back from Mars to Earth, where of course we have a lot more research capabilities. Okay, inside the asteroid belt, I don't think we're going to find a lot of life there, so let's move on to our first gas giant, Jupiter. The planet itself, of course, is not going to host any life, at least we don't think it does. So let's move on to the 4 Galilean moons, Io, Ganymede, Europa, and Callisto. Io and Ganymede, it's very unlikely that there is life there, but there is a chance for subsurface oceans with liquid water on Europa and Callisto. More Europa than Callisto, and we had some images from the Hubble Space Telescope that observed potential water vapor plumes on Europa. Of course, once we find something that's interesting, we want to find out more about it, so we're sending a mission there. Basically, we already sent it. It's the Europa Clipper mission, and it's designed to confirm whether or not there is a subsurface ocean on Europa. If it exists, then there is liquid water somewhere else outside of the Earth. And with liquid water and enough temperature and enough nutrients and enough radiation protection, it is possible that life could have evolved there on Europa and maybe is still active there. Given the case of a potential subsurface ocean, there could be enough radiation protection due to the mass of all the water and the crust of the planet, or rather the moon in this case, that there could be enough radiation protection for bacteria or maybe even more complex forms of life to exist. Unfortunately, I can't show you a lot of these moons in Kitten Space Agency, because so far we only really have a surface for Io, and it's not that much to look at, honestly. At least not close up, because once you go further away, it looks a lot nicer than if you're actually on the surface there. But be assured, the developers are going to improve on all of that. Moving even further out, we're now at Saturn, the wonderful ringed gas giant we talked about in the beginning of this video. Again, a gas giant, but prettier. I'm not going to mention all of Saturn's moons, only the 2 that potentially could house life, at least those that have been discussed the most in scientific literature. First up, as we already mentioned at the beginning, Enceladus. Like Europa, there is a chance for water, liquid water, under the icy surface, since we observed some geysers with the Cassini probe back in the day. By the way, Cassini was a fascinating mission, so if you haven't read up on that, it's really interesting what they did with that probe. Similarly to the other moons of Jupiter, there is not yet any surface in Kitten Space Agency for Enceladus. I mean, it is kind of icy white, but yeah, that's just a placeholder. But there is a surface and even atmosphere for Titan. I don't know why, I just like the word Titan. Titan is interesting because it has a lot of chemicals in its atmosphere, but liquid water is unlikely, except maybe under the surface, but there is no confirmation yet, at least not to my knowledge. There is liquid methane though, so yeah, there's that. NASA is planning a very interesting mission to check out Titan. It's the Dragonfly mission, where they're going to send like a, not really quadcopter, it's more like an octocopter because it has 2 rotors on each corner. And that is going to land on the surface, take some samples, analyze it, and then fly to the next area of interest. And one of the mission goals is to check for prebiotic chemistry and potential biosignatures if there are any around. Alright, we're now really far away from the sun, so there's not a lot of heat and light energy coming our way because we're now at Uranus. And I'm going to include Neptune in this part of the video because we really don't expect to find any signs of life on either of these gas giants, nor on any of their moons, if being honest. There might be evidence on one of the moons of these 2 outer planets that there maybe was liquid water in the past, but until we can send a mission there and find out more, which is going to take a lot of time, not just for planning, financing, and executing, but also traveling there, because it's really far away. Unless we do that, we really are just speculating, if we're being honest, and gathering data by observation through telescopes. Alright, I'm not going to go through the Kuiper belt, and I'm not going to include Pluto here, but let's talk about something, well, more in general, because there is a big question out there that I've heard multiple times, and honestly, I don't have the answer, so maybe you guys can sound off in the comments what you think about that. Namely, is life unique to Earth, or is it inevitable given enough complexity in a system where organic chemicals can occur? I mean, part of this video was inspired by a book I'm currently reading. It's called Shroud by Adrian Tchaikovsky, the author who also wrote Children of Time and its follow-ups Children of Ruin and Children of Memory. Fantastic series, by the way. And Tchaikovsky is really inventive in unusual ways of life existing or coming up through evolution on planets out there somewhere in the universe. And his newest one, Shroud, is no different. It's really interesting what he cooked up there, and I'm currently like halfway through the novel, so yeah, don't spoil anything in the comments. Personally, I'm very looking forward to the results from Europa Clipper and all the other missions to those moons and to Enceladus that should come in the future, because personally I don't believe that we are alone in the universe and that life is unique to Earth. What other form it could take, I don't know, but I like to be surprised, at least in that type of way. What's no surprise to long-time viewers is now that I'm going to mention Patreon once again, which I did in basically every video since the past year. The reason I do that is because I try to offer some additional benefits to people who want to support this channel with some financial contribution to what I do here, and I'm really grateful for anyone who does so. For instance, you can watch all of my videos ad-free, no pesky YouTube ads there. And if you go for one of the higher tiers, your name will show up here, together with all of these wonderful people. As always, thank you again for your support. Is there life out there in the universe? Is there even in our solar system aside from Earth? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Did I miss something? Did I misquote something? Also, please, again, let me know. While Enceladus still does not have a surface in Kitten Space Agency, as I said, the rings are there, and I think I'm going to fly around those and enjoy myself while doing so. And you can do so as well, since the game is currently completely free to download from their platform. I'll link it below. So enjoy, have fun, and I'll be back after my vacation. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel for more and follow me on my social thingies. The links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.